My shop teacher once said that a good craftsman never blames his tools. And at the time, I was young and naive, and I was like, of course, a good craftsman has good tools. But I've since come to realize that a tool is only as good as the hands that are holding it. And the most important tool is the one between your ears. But a few good tools helps a lot, and any tool is better than no tool. And since most people can't sail around with an entire workshop full of tools, and most people aren't renovating their entire boat, today I'm gonna go over my top 10 tools that I wouldn't go sailing without. And I've got them right here. Wait. I'm missing one. I'll be right back.
Oh, hey guys, remember me? I know last time you saw me I was stuck in a storage unit, but good thing that Kika forgot this and also in the storage unit, which means I can still go anywhere I want. But okay, today Dan is gonna talk about all the tools that Dan and Kika uses on the sailboat for the boat projects and stuff. But just remember that the most important tool that we possess, it's not something physical, it's in here. It's in our minds. Because our tools are as good as the creative minds behind it. And mental health plays a huge role into unlocking that potential creativity, which is why I am excited to talk about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. Just like a trusty multi-tools that fits perfectly in our pocket, BetterHelp's mission is to bring therapy that is affordable and accessible to everyone, no matter where we are in the world. And trust me, finding a good therapist is like finding a screw in a very unorganized toolbox. There it is. But with BetterHelp, it is so simple to connect with a therapist that truly understands your needs. Their platform is entirely online and remote, making it as simple as honing a blade. Just answer a few questions and within a few days, they'll match you with a professional therapist. And of course, once you are matched, you can chat with your therapist anytime, anywhere that is convenient for you. And the best part is, if you don't feel that connection with your match, switching therapists is so easy, is as effortless as switching to the right tool for the job. So if you're struggling to keep your mind as sharp as your favorite knife, consider checking out BetterHelp. You can click on the description below, or you can look up betterhelp.com/sailinguma for 10% off your first month. Thanks again to BetterHelp for supporting our channel and for helping us keep our mental toolbox in good working order. Okay, bye.
All right, I found it. And we're gonna start with the first tool in my top 10 list, which is a good head torch. This one is made by Nightcore. It is their NU35, and let's just say we've gone through a lot of head torches in the last 10 years, from really expensive ones to really cheap ones, and this is the one we're currently using, and it's by far the best. Let me explain why. So this headlamp is waterproof. It also has a nice little protective cover so you can't accidentally turn it on, like if it's dropped in your backpack. It also has a red light, which is convenient, with 2 separate switches, so you can switch between the red and the white light, and then back to red without having to tap through different modes or hunt for them, which is awesome. The other really cool part is that it's rechargeable via USB-C, but if you don't have a means of charging it or you run out of battery, you can also put 3 AAA batteries in the back. And so it works off of both. The brightest mode requires the AAA batteries and the rechargeable batteries to both be working at the same time, but if you forgot to charge it and you need it right away, you can always pop some AAAs in there or keep some spare if you're going out hiking and you don't have a way of charging it. We also put some reflective tape on the outside of it so it's easy to spot if you set it down. And so far we've really liked it. It's very comfortable, the band is very comfortable, and the reason I put it up at the top of the list is because if you can't see what you're working on or you can't see to find your tools, they're kind of useless. So keeping this accessible and easy to grab is why it's number 1. The second tool on the list is going to be a Leatherman. I've owned a lot of Leathermans in my life and I've always sort of had one with me, but for sailing, this one's by far my favorite. It's the Leatherman Free P2, and they've come out with a P4 now because I don't think they make the P2 anymore, which has like 1 or 2 extra blades, but It's the same theory, and that theory is everything on this Leatherman is operable with just one hand. So you can open up the pliers one-handed and use them. You can also close them one-handed, and then you can pull the blade out one-handed and it locks, and then you can close it one-handed. You can pull the scissors out one-handed and use them one-handed. And you can also get the screwdrivers out, and I just know that this is the Phillips head without even looking. And I can close it, and I can open it, and this is the flathead without even looking. And that's why this Leatherman's my favorite for sailing, because, you know, one hand for the boat, one hand for you, and you don't have time to like open up a Leatherman, take a knife out, close it with two hands and use it. There are probably stronger, more durable, more solid Leathermans, but the fact that you can use everything one-handed with this one makes it my favorite, and I carry it all the time. The third tool on the list is going to be a pair of locking pliers. These ones are vice grips. They're the originals, and the captain of the very first boat I ever went sailing on gave me these. They've been chrome plated, which means that they don't really corrode, and these things are awesome. You can do so much with them. If you don't know what vice grips are, I don't know where you've been. But the point is that you can open them, and then you can adjust this little screw on the back to make the jaws a little bit tighter. And then when you clamp it down on something, it locks it super, super tight. So then it's a clamp, it's a third hand. You can then set that piece down and work on it. Absolutely love these. You can crimp wires with them. And in a pinch, it'll even replace a crescent wrench, because you can lock that onto a nut or a tight bolt and use it as a makeshift wrench. It's not great, but in a pinch it works, which is why it's on this super minimalist list. One of my favorite uses for these is to hold a nut like on the underside of the deck, and then you can go up to the top and tighten it or loosen it, and this will hold that nut in place, so you don't necessarily need two people to do that job if you're by yourself. The fourth item on the list is a pair of hemostats. These are just cheap surgical hemostats. You can buy them on Amazon. I don't remember how long I've had these, but they're very useful because they're also locking. So you can hold on to smaller things like a zip tie, a wire, and you can clip onto that and they will hold secure. So if you're trying to pull a wire out or twist something or pick something up that's very small, these are super, super useful. I love these things. I use them all the time. And if you combine your hemostats with the locking pliers, you can make a makeshift work vise. You can set that down on a table, and now you've got your wire, you can solder it, you can tie a knot, you can do whatever you need to do, perform surgery, I don't know. But it's really handy to have multiple ways of securing and holding something, because you never seem to have enough hands to do the job correctly. Number 5 on the list is this tiny little toolbox. I love this thing. I picked this up back in Florida probably 5 years ago, specifically to install our toilet, because there's just no space beside it to tighten up the little screw that holds the toilet down. It's super tiny. It's just a little ratchet driver and a bit set, and it's got kind of just everything you need. It's got a couple of 1/4-inch sockets, including a 10 mil, so you can use it to tighten up pipe clamps, and your average assortment of bits, flats, torques, hexes, and some different Phillips. But my favorite part is actually this little ratchet that it comes with. This thing is sweet. This little ratchet is probably the best part of the whole toolkit. It's absolutely tiny and has these little knurled edges on the end. So when you have a bit inside of it and you're just trying to start it, you can just start it with your fingers, and then you can get to ratcheting it after. That is probably my favorite part of this little ratchet, because I've used other ones like this big old thing, and it's just not as good. There's no way to like finger tighten it, and the little lever on the back to switch it back and forth between forward and reverse. It's really easy to bump, and it's kind of heavy and chunky. This thing is just tiny, and I absolutely love it. I find myself grabbing this little toolbox more than any other tool on the boat. All right, tool number 6, and that's gonna be a bit driver. So typically, that would look something like this, just a handle with a little 1/4-inch magnetic bit holder in the end. And you could use it with the bits in here. So you can get down inside of something and actually tighten up a screw, loosen up a screw. These are okay, but often the diameter of the bit holder is too big to get down inside of some screw holes because they're meant for regular screwdrivers like these, which are much thinner. But I hate carrying multiples of these because you never really know what size you're gonna need. And carrying one of these is okay, but it's not ideal. So recently I found something better, and it's the newest tool in my toolbox, and so far I absolutely love it. It is this little bit driver set from Wera. Check this out. It comes with a handle, which is tiny, and then it comes with all of these multiple bits, which have really long shanks, which means they kind of replace a traditional screwdriver. And the best part is they just snap in. Listen to this. Oh. I absolutely love the screwdriver. And you can also still use traditional 1/4-inch bits, and then it becomes sort of a little stubby screwdriver, and they still lock in. This is slowly becoming my favorite screwdriver, and it's gonna replace all of these in the toolbox. And depending on your boat and your situation, you could replace certain of these driver bits to fit whatever your needs are. So you always have like a nice complete set. These are awesome, and I'm pretty excited to never use these again. All right, number 7 on the list, and this one's a bit more technical, is gonna be a multimeter. If you don't know how to use one of these things, now's a good time to learn, but also they're not that intimidating. Most of the time I only use it for checking continuity to make sure there's not a break in a circuit and checking voltage. Both of those things you could actually do with one of the new test lights that has a little digital voltmeter in it, which are cheaper and easier to use if something like this is a little bit intimidating. This is a UT210. It's super tiny, and it does everything that I needed to do on a boat. It even has a clamp meter, so you can put it around an AC or a DC wire, and you can check amperage going through, so you can see what's coming in from your solar or shore power, or if something's drawing too much or too little. Again, this is a bit of a specialty piece, but it's super useful when you're trying to diagnose issues, especially electrical issues, on newer modern boats that have more and more complex electrical systems. Tool number 8, and one that I don't have with me because in all of this chaos that is our boat right now, I've misplaced it. But that's a butane torch. Easily replaced by just a standard lighter, but a refillable butane torch is also super useful piece of kit. You can melt rope, you can solder a little bit with it, you can heat things up, you can start a fire, you can sterilize a needle for taking a splinter out. I mean, fire is super, super important. If you're flying somewhere and need to sort of pare down the toolkit, you can always just buy a Bic lighter when you get there, because flying with a big thing of butane is usually frowned upon. But having some sort of way of melting things and heating things up is super useful, and Bic lighters are super cheap. One little tip though, if you are getting a lighter or a butane torch, make sure you can kind of see down the side of it so you can see how much fuel is left, so that you don't end up flying with a torch that's empty. Number 9 on the list is a blade. Specifically, I like these utility blades. This is an old DeWalt one I've probably had since I was 10, but these little snap-off utility blades are awesome. Especially again, if you're flying, you can take the blade out and just fly with the knife, and then when you get somewhere, you can hawk into any hardware store and pick up these blades super duper cheap, and that way you have a good disposable knife that you don't have to worry about sharpening or getting rusty or whatever. And the same goes for the Leatherman. You can get bladeless TSA versions of these that are just the pliers and the tools, and so your only blade becomes the utility blade, which you can just pick up along with the lighter when you land, and you still have a full toolkit, and you don't have to put it in your check bag. An alternative to one of these snap-off blades would be one of these little disposable box cutter blades. These are also universally available everywhere. You can't snap them off, but you can pick them up super cheap. This is like a little tiny retractable one. I fly with this all the time and just leave the blade at home, And then you can buy blades when you get there, and it's very convenient to have just something sharp in your pocket to like open stuff, cut rope, whatever you need to do. All right, last but not least, number 10 is some form of sewing. There's some pretty cheap little camp repair kits out there. I've always carried some sort of version of a needle and thread and maybe some pins in every toolkit I've ever owned. But one we've come across recently, which I absolutely love, is this little rip spool by Exotac. This thing's awesome. It has a little bobbin at the top to put some thread, which it comes with. You could replace this with like Gore-Tex infused sail thread. It has a little tiny hole in the top so you can tuck the thread through so it doesn't come unraveled. I've replaced this cord with fire cord, so it has a little bit of fire starter on the inside of it. The whole spool is wrapped with Gorilla Tape already, so you don't have to carry that extra. And inside, you unthread it. There's a little tube that has a sail needle in it. And that sail needle is super sharp, and you can also flip it around, put it back in, and now you've got a bit of an awl, so you can punch that through a sail and repair it, or clothes or backpack or a webbing strap. It's super useful. And this is a sharp enough needle, you can actually use it to take out splinters as well. This is one of my favorite sewing kits I've ever seen. It's small, compact, and it just all fits in there really, really well. And it's all replaceable as well. So when you run out of duct tape, you can add more. When you run out of thread, you can add more. You can put whatever sail needle you want inside. And it's just a really awesome, small, compact package. So that's the sewing kit that we end up carrying all the time. And that's it. That's all 10 tools that I would recommend that you don't go sailing without. And if you are flying with just a carry-on, it's easy to replace a couple of those with TSA approved or TSA appropriate tools. And obviously you should be carrying a Sharpie, zip ties, duct tape, super glue, a few Ziploc bags. Obviously, these things you should just never go anywhere without. And one little bonus tip, if you carry heat shrink with you, you can use it to store your zip ties so they stay all nice and neat and tidy. And if you get some tough Ziploc bags, you can put all these tools inside of it so you can keep them dry and clean and rust free, which is a bonus, especially if you live on a sailboat. Obviously, that's not a complete list. But over the last 10 years, these are sort of the top 10 tools that I grab the most, use the most. But like I said at the beginning of the video, the most important tool is the one between your ears. And these tools are just meant to sort of augment your own creativity and ingenuity. Many of you probably have most of these tools already or some version thereof, or you can kind of put something together like a sewing kit. You don't have to go out and buy all this new stuff right away, but if you found this video useful, you can use it to substitute in things you need to upgrade or things maybe you don't have already. We'll leave links to all of these below, and if you found this video useful, make sure you give it a thumbs up and let us know if we missed anything or what's in your toolbox or your top 10 down in the comments below. And I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week. Cheers. I'm just proving a point, Kiko. See, that one fits in the hole, but the fatter one doesn't fit in the hole, so you can't screw it. It's not that the hole's too small, it's that the shaft is too big.